You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So visit FanDuel.com to get started with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And once again, diving headfirst into portal business. We'll get into a farther reaching sort of portal conversation as we get into, well, the cost of business these days. We touched on it in yesterday's conversation and included the word sustainable or not. And I want to revisit that with you and include a question from a Matador mobster, sort of along the lines of how not sustainable are we talking? And actually for who and in what aspects? So we'll get into that a little bit further coming up. I want to talk about some business going down in the Big 12 elsewhere as well, as some other programs are making some noise and turning some heads as far as some additions or possible additions and what that means, obviously, for the league, what that means for Texas Tech moving forward. And as we kick off our conversation, of course, Chris, will allow any room for you to fill in some gaps on things that have developed as far as names or targets. We got heavy into that on yesterday's episode, so make sure you catch up with everything there if you missed it. But in general, this is about cash. This is about sustainability, and this is about this era that we're now in, Chris, where I enjoy the entertainment aspect of it all, but I know that as far as the future is concerned, there is some trepidation as to the precedents that we're kind of setting right now. I know you're feeling it just like I'm feeling it, and obviously all fans are feeling it, right?
Yeah, it's just, you know, I go back to what I heard Scott Drew and Jerome Tang say, because I think when it was reported that Coleman Hawkins last year, the Kansas State player, was going to make 1.8 or $2 million a year, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I think he was large in part the poster child for like the highest paid player, and he was a good player, but he wasn't some all-conference guy. He wasn't somebody that was a get him over the top type of guy. He's just a really good, maybe the best of a role player, okay? And there was a lot said and written, and he has said a lot, and Jerome Tang has said a lot about, you know, the what came with that. But like this cycle with what you, and again, this is assuming you believe everything that's out there, but I think that some of this is well documented and reported by national folks and what, you know, whatnot, that these prices are doubling. And so I think it's pretty common knowledge that like some of these Power 4 schools, like the ones that are playing ball, are going to put a 10 to, you know, I think, what did I say, $8 to $15 million or $10 to $15 million like roster on the court this fall in some cases. And so some won't go that high, but others may go even higher. But I mean, prime example, it's a lot of frustration out of Waco, Texas. I mean, I don't really see how you can get real all bent out of shape about this kind of stuff, but to each his own. We had a deal. You left the said deal on the table, and he's going to go to BYU now for $3.4 million or whatever is coming out of there. Talking about Rob Wright.
Yeah,
he's a good player, Cowan. He's a good point guard. He's got some upside. Doesn't play a ton of great defense, but he's a facilitator and a pretty good scorer. And I think he had his moments where it was like, okay, he's really good, and other times where it's like, okay, but that's worth $3.5 million basically. So, and I think they've just basically said, okay, BYU, I mean, God and the Latter-day, you know, the church out there, they're doing well. I mean, God,
well financed.
I mean, because if that is to be believed, they're going to have over $8 million tied to two players.
Right.
Because they've got one of the top high school players in the country that they've committed $5 million to, and that's when and again, it's not sour grapes. It's just this is what I'm saying is like I just wonder if these kinds of dollar figures and this is sustainable long term. But I mean, not everybody can do what BYU is doing. Texas Tech is doing this to a certain extent. Others are not. Others are not doing these things. And I just wonder too, if kids get into the portal, I mean, how many $2 million spots are there on rosters out there? Or are some just going to say, hey, we'll wait for the market to come back to us and see what's left and put a team, you know what I mean? It's kind of like MLB right now. There's enough out there that would say to you that MLB rosters, like the most money being spent, isn't necessarily guarantee you anything. Now, the Dodgers kind of suggest otherwise, but there's so many teams like the A's and the Rays and the whatever that are just as good and all that without having to spend a ton of money over the years. Anyway, so because some of the dollar figures right now this is wild, man. And I think what everybody feels like is this is the point I brought up about sustainability. The thing is, if this is a one-time window, which I think a lot of folks feel like that it is, then let's go. But what if this is a one-time window that is never ending? How willing are people to go, well, I've given you like $6 million over the last couple of years, and I mean, I'd kind of like to live a nice life too. I just don't know. I'm not really getting anything. There's no other than a tax write-off. I'm not getting anything from my return. I mean, how willing are donors? Because some donors, this is just play money. This is like, because I think the BYU, it's a lot of this money's coming from like the owner of the Jazz, and there may be no end in sight, but maybe there's a money tree out there that they just continue to grow more, and I don't know, but I guess that's what my question is how long term would this last if everybody knew this was how it was going to be, and this isn't a one-time window. Because, I mean, let's just hypothetically say if Rob Wright is worth $3.5 million, what's JT Toppin worth?
8.2. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know.
I mean, you see what I'm saying?
My money or somebody else's money?
But you know what I'm saying? I mean, either way, that price would be the same.
It goes back to the value being whatever somebody's willing to pay for it.
That's right. That's
Crazy.
Right. And I'd be willing to bet you that somebody's willing to pay JT Toppin way more than $3.5 million, or certainly over that. I mean, what's D5 worth? What's So anyway, I think that's but your league. I mean, Houston with Pop Isaacs and. I don't know. I'll be quiet. We can shift however you want to, but there's a lot going on in the league of Big 12 basketball right now.
Apparently, back to something you said also earlier. Apparently, there are a lot more $2 million spots out there than any of us ever thought. I've been kind of blown away with that. Apparently, there's a lot of them, or at least 1 million, or like 750,000, or $400,000 spots, or whatever. So get it while you can get it. Get it while the getting is good, and smoke them if you got them. What other way you want to describe it? It's crazy to consider. And is all of this, justified or smart or fruitful for the future? I doubt it. But who cares? It's entertaining. And if you can have it pay off, which comes back to your identification process, then
yes,
power to you. We root for a program and cover a program that has been good in identifying the right targets and getting them to fit in. So not a whole lot of buyer's remorse around here, but elsewhere, yeah, there's some buyer's remorse. And I guess, Chris, I'm kind of wondering, when you think about the sustainability aspect of it, I'm kind of wondering, like, which is the worst part? Is it the every year free agency part, or is it the cash money part that people are wincing more at? And I would almost tell you, I think it's the timeline of this all, not necessarily even the cash, because it's like, hey, I may be willing to make this bigger dollar bet or investment if I've got a term agreement of multiple years or whatever. But it's kind of like the feeling I had about our guy Christian Anderson, and the indication that he's going to be officially returning to Texas Tech. And I'm psyched. I'm off the ground. I'm cheering. I'm fist pumping. I'm pumped up. And then I return to the ground and I'm like, Okay, so guy had a great year, and now I'm overjoyed he's decided to stick with you for a second. This didn't used to be the way it was, but it's the every year free agency aspect. What do you think about that part? Like, which one is really which one makes you wince a little more when you think about the timeline of it all? Every 365 days, let's do it all over again? Or is it like the dollar amounts you think that are making people kind of flinch a little bit more? First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs coming up, and FanDuel giving new customers a great way to kickstart the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Plus, after the game tips off, you still got all kinds of options. You can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big and a whole lot more. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com today and claim your $250 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. The timeline of it all, every 365 days, let's do it all over again? Or is it like the dollar amounts you think that are making people kind of flinch a little bit more?
I mean, the answer is yes. Yeah, the answer is yes. I mean, it's the combination of everything because, you know, when it's running simultaneously, when you've got big dollar amounts, you've got still people that are still playing their season out and they're being tampered with, which is happening, and all that. And I'm sure to a certain extent, everybody's loosely involved, if not heavily involved in that. Whether it's above board or below, I mean, you know, I just talked to like his high school coach. I'm not trying to tamper. I mean, you know, whatever it may be. I think the answer is yes. And you're right. You now have announcements on committing, and then you're getting a lot of recommitting. I mean, like Kansas, you know, their center, he had a big announcement. I'm going to the portal. And then we have a big announcement. Hey, man, I'm coming back to Kansas. So he got double the announcements and really never did anything. He just stayed right where he was at. Didn't he have to move out of his dorm or apartment or whatever? It's like, but that it does go back. And this is why you ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to trust people like Joey and Grant that are great identifiers, great at connecting, and great with people, not just the X's and O's part of what coaching is, but how do you mesh it together quickly? And I think Joey being I know we're having a basketball conversation, but some of this spills over into football too. Oh, yeah. I think that his high school background and Grant's junior college basketball background benefit them greatly in these times. I think you could put either guy in any kind of room and they will be able to work that room and be able to connect people and be able to lead people fast and all the things. And you're having to re-put together the puzzle on a yearly basis because I mean, think about how different your defense compared to how, like on football, look at your defense on paper, what you thought it would have been if there wasn't a portal to be allowed. Like, it's a completely different unit, and all the people that you would have been seeing as a starter or everything, they're going to be like second and third team types.
I don't even remember who those guys are. I've forgotten all their names. I mean,
we'll have to spend some time on that. But like basketball wise, that's why I think it is, if it makes sense, the nucleus. This is what gave you such a leg up last year, is having like the duo of Chance and D5 to build around, and they had been through it and they could kind of vet the process and all that. Christian is going to be a part of that this year. You hope that JT Toppin is as well. And I think that whoever else, Federico, and, you know, whether it's Overton and Horner and even Mariella Kuntak, who just got here, and EY, I mean, those pieces are a little bit more crucial than you would think. It's funny how all of a sudden, say a guy like EY, let's just use him as an example. Is he valuable to your team? Well, what do I mean by that? Like, in other words, are you paying him, or is he worth a ton on the open market? I would guess probably not, just because he hasn't played a ton. He's been a bit injured and all those things. However, if you've allocated a lot of dollars and everything to a select few, he may become quite valuable to you as a 8th, 9th, 10th piece of your roster, because how much better is he than other people's 8th, 9th, 10th piece of their roster? Because he can do it at a high level. I've seen him do it in Houston, Texas, as a matter of fact. And that's the highest level. And he was as big a part of that win as anybody. So he may become quite valuable to you, even though maybe he's not getting, a ton of rev share or a ton of NIL or whatever. You follow me? So at some point, those guys become extremely valuable to you because, one, they've been a part of your nucleus. They're culture warriors is kind of the term everybody uses now, or can be, and you're not having to pay them top dollar, but they're a good piece that can play in a pinch or play more than that, and all that. So it's kind of fascinating how all this stuff gets put together. But and part of me, Calvin, too, thought there was a time, say 24, 36 hours ago, I'm like, man, you may have this thing put together with your team large in part here pretty quickly. And then 36 hours later, it's like, this may take a while. Or is it somewhere in between that, because new guys are entering the portal. I mean, the portal doesn't even close until next week. So you still have guys entering, and as many commitments there are out there, there's still plenty to be had. So anyway, it's just but the dollars being rumored to be thrown around here are massive amounts of money.
Yeah, like you said, you got to put the puzzle back together every year. Not only that, you got to rebuy the pieces. You can't even use the pieces you had carrying over almost. And these pieces need a new deal because it's a new year. So I'm glad you bring up the last few days, because I wanted to ask you, because you and I were having conversations over the weekend talking about rumblings, feelings, vibes, indications, trend lines. And we talked about, active weekend likely coming up. It was active-ish, but I don't think everything that we were anticipating necessarily came to fruition, kind of like you were just alluding to there. Any feel on maybe why it's taken longer? Did we anticipate a timeline that was just maybe incorrect or too quick early on? Also have had some for the Matador Mob talking about the weekend action that never quite came to be. So you think there have been some changes, or is it just kind of traced back to maybe what you already said there and how fluid this thing can be with targets?
Because this has to do with the court case, right?
Yeah,
and like
pressing up against us, I guess, at that time.
And conducting business. I would say that just because you haven't heard about it doesn't mean that deals haven't gotten done. File that away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Filed.
File that away.
Yes, sir.
I think that's important to note everywhere, not just Lubbock, but everywhere. And again, I asked this aloud, the other day, and obviously Texas Tech released Christian Anderson, but there have been times before, like during the football part, it was the Matador Club that was saying, got this guy in, we've done the deal. And then sometimes it's like an agent will say, hey, my client has committed to or inked a contract with, then sometimes it's the player, hey man, running it back. So I think that, like, going to this one, that timetable has now since been delayed. You're allowed to conduct business under the old set of rules for, I'm not even ready to say now that we kind of went up against this deadline, and she's like, let's reconvene in a week. I want some wording different, the judge in California. And I've even heard there's still a grace period after that, and it may not be finalized until whatever. We also still have the retroactive aspect too. So everybody's just kind of flying blind a little bit. But speaking of weekends, you do have 2 reported visits coming in this weekend from a basketball standpoint. And there's new contact being made. You've made in the last day or 3. I think that you've been in contact with a center from Grand Canyon, a guard from Utah State, a wing from Villanova. I'm probably missing plenty, and yet you're not real sure. Nobody from your roster other than D5 has declared that he's publicly entering the portal. So you just there's still a lot to try to maneuver through here. But I will say this. I don't want to bury the lead, but like Christian Anderson is the perfect player to invest in these times, because he's young, he's got upside. There is zero drama to speak of surrounding him or him personally or whatever. He's just a really good player that is going to continue to get better. He can do a variety of things for you. He knows what it's supposed to look like, and he's done it on a big time level on an Elite Eight team. I mean, this is what you want, and he will now become part of this nucleus that I think I'd be willing to bet you that as new pieces get brought in or visit, I'd be willing to bet you that Christian Anderson is side by side with these guys on their visits. How are they wired? Hey, like this is who Grant and AC and Linder and Buff and all these guys, they'll want to listen to everything that Christian has to say about how these kids were on a visit and what their desires are. What did they talk about? And Grant has said this. If they sit there and talk about how many shots they need, probably it's not going to work. you know what I mean? And I think Christian is a perfect guy to kind of take the baton from Chance and potentially D5-2 and be a part of that council that the coaching staff leans on. So that's why I'm so glad that he is back and kind of in so many ways, he's going to be a bit of a face of your program here.
You reminded me when I was going after maybe the first job after I got out of high school and had an interview coming up. Also had a big trip planned in the near future, and asked the old man, "You think I should mention that to them?" He said, "I think I might wait on that. So don't show up talking about your next vacation to a job interview or how many shots you need if you're wanting to be added to the roster, I guess." But
I get, Cal, and I get the. You've seen it like I have. The concern, the worry. There's a vulnerable feeling right now. It's like you see business being conducted elsewhere, and you want to be a part of it. And you just came off an Elite Eight, and you're like, "Well, Pop Isaacs commits to Houston, and BYU loses their point guard of the NBA, and they just bought one for 3.5 potentially from Baylor, who's a really good player." But it's your league it ain't going away, man. Like this is what you have staring you in the face. Yeah, Arizona lost a few pieces. KJ Lewis, I think, went to Georgetown. Vasar goes to North Carolina, so you won't have to deal with those guys anymore. But they still have Caleb Love graduates. They still have some incoming talent. They have one of the top freshmen in the country coming in. But the top two players in the country, one of them is going to Kansas, and one of them is going to BYU. These are the freshmen.
Yeah.
And then you see what is, because Houston is going to be they're going to be picked to win the Big 12, and they're going to be preseason number 1 is my guess. And even if, Pop Isaacs, what made me wonder there is that Milos Uzan, may be a sign that he's going pro, and this is a replacement. But if not, they still have Kingston Flemings, who was one of the top guards in the country from a high school standpoint. You wanted him. You finished second in the Kingston Flemings deal, and he's still going to Houston, and they still get the Defensive Player of the Year back. They still get Emmanuel Sharp back. They've got Terrence Arsenault back. They're loaded again. They graduate Cryer and Roberts and Francis and some of those guys, but they still have a ton back. And then they add a guy like Pop. Say what you want about Isaacs, but he's tough. I do think it'll be interesting to see if his body can handle diving on the floor for loose balls in those practices that they run, because he's smaller. He's 6'2", 170, but he's tough. And if Sampson pulls it out of him, and that's just another weapon that they would have got. Because I'm telling you right now, Pop Isaacs would have gotten a shot off at the end of the clock the other night. Without a doubt, or he would have gotten by somebody and gotten to the free throw line. Of that, I have no doubt. That's just the facts as I see them. But point is, your league is going to be nasty again. Iowa State preseason top 15 with what we're seeing. BYU not going away. Again, that money is, it's like making it rain out there in Provo, man. It's wild, but they are, I can see why some of these folks were like, don't let them in. Don't let them into this league. And Utah is probably going, y'all screwed this up big time by letting BYU, because they're just,
I guess. If you're just wanting Tom, Dick, and Harry to be in the league and bring nothing to it, but BYU is the greatest ad that the Big 12's actually made. So
potentially, yeah. Yep.
I'm sure Utah would love a league filled with UCFs, given the fact that they can't beat anyone from anywhere and anything. Yeah. But otherwise, you're trying to compete with some of the best. BYU is going to continue to assert themselves among that group. And the Big 12, I mean, yeah, everything you just ran down there as far as what we can anticipate for the 25-26 calendar is kind of a scary thing, but I am not a member of the panicking party, and I do not care about what other business is happening elsewhere and how it relates to some feeling that, well, I should have business going on. I trust the guy conducting the business here in the 806, and his timing is the timing I'm operating on. And I think the line we have filed away, we'll remind them to file away again. Just because you hadn't heard about it doesn't mean it hadn't happened yet. So consider that as well.
Filed,
all right, Chris.
Filed. And your coach has, it's not a giant body of work, but he has shown you that he will put a competent, relevant, quality product on the court, and then he will squeeze everything that group has to offer. He'll get every bit of it out of them. And that's the best compliment. I say this all the time about Grant, and there's just not many coaches out there that I've been around that literally pull everything out of a group and achieve what was expected, if not more, because too many times that's the hardest thing to do, is just to meet an expectation. I think in both years that he's been here, he's probably met it and exceeded it. Again, difficult to do. There may come a time where it's like, okay, didn't quite get there, but we hadn't seen it yet. We haven't seen it yet.
I doubt it'll be a perfect run, but you think about a roster put together, first time he's in West Texas and kind of an abbreviated cycle, and you don't have huge splashes really at that time, and you do get to the NCAA tournament, but you're bounced, make a much bigger splash the next cycle with the guy that everybody wanted, and JT Toppin winds up a Conference Player of the Year. You're in the Elite Eight, and to me, that proof of performance should suggest an even greater ability to attract top shelf talent. And I know the resources and the willingness obviously there. So not expecting them to be going anywhere.
Yeah. Cause you are spending. I mean, make no mistake. You are playing. Now, I don't know if you have enough. I don't know if you have enough on hand to allocate $8 million to two guys like BYU maybe has reported to have done. But I don't know many others that are. But that's a different deal. But I mean, you are playing ball. There is no doubt. But I think a lot of people are, and it's just the cost. Like everything else in this world, it's going up.
That's right. And you can't take it with you. Your kids are going to squander it, put it into college basketball. That's the wise play, or football. Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoyed it. Thank you for the insights, and we'll kick it on back to wrap it up for one more next. We'll see you then.
Hey, man, sounds good. Look forward to a little mailbag action tomorrow from our mob folks, and we'll get into some more football and portal, and because football portal window coming up too.
Yeah, we got one closing, one opening, so
head on a swivel.
That's right.
Is what I would tell you. It's going to be an active April, and really not. I mean, it spills into May actually. So yeah, away we go. But man, keep hope alive.
That's right. And well financed.
And file it away. Just because you hadn't heard about it don't mean it ain't done.
For Chris, I'm Casey. Thank you all for the time. Appreciate you being out there. Thank you to the everydayers for always being out there. And shout out to the Matador Mob. Hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial. If you're interested in joining that crew, that's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. We appreciate you and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.